Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the 6th round of this 11th Midwest F1 season. We're here at the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez here, sponsored by... That was terrible rolling of the R's there, apologize. 6th round of the season presented by Travis Scott. It's lit! Well, no, it's actually just the racer here. That's what we do in the off-season. We kind of open these rounds to sponsors. Anyways, hotspot for you on the call here in Division 2. I believe that my first trek into Division 2 this season. So it should be pretty interesting to see. I think we have at least 17 on the grid tonight, perhaps 18. Should be a fun one here. Well, we have a minute. Let's go over our driver and constructor standings as it stands heading into this week. After Belgium last week, we got Mitch Burns in the Alfa Romeo leading Bobbert Yates by 7 points. Atop the table, 148 to 141. Bobbert Yates' Ferrari teammate of Tinel is actually not all that far behind. He comes in at 137. Travis Scott, who I believe is up in Division 1 this week in P4 at 117, Caesar 115. The pair of McLarens, Anbu Mason 109, Plums 94. He's actually tied with Slayerized for that 7th spot at 94 points apiece. Fire Up Flow, P9, and Ray Ray in 10th. Those are your top 10 of the drivers as far as constructors are concerned. McLaren lead Alfa Romeo 229 to 205. Red Bull third at 192. Ferrari 188. Alpine 175. AlphaTauri 161. Haas at 135. Mercedes and Williams tied at 125. And then Aston Martin at 118. But it looks like we're going to get our first few takers out on track today. First one looks like... Who are we going to have here? Going to be the Haas of Brian Mosser. Out on track first. Making his way down the very long pit straight here into the first couple of complex corners this. Memorable moments we've seen in this first sector just recently as well. That first sector, always a conundrum. This 4, 5, and 6, difficult as well. Almost a double right-hander apex at turn 6. Exit that corner, turn 7. This whole back end of the second sector here is so difficult to go through because it does remind you almost of Maggots and Beckett's, but there's no camber in the corners. The car just wants to slide off the road, and thankfully for Brian Mosser, the Haas has gone... Well, I know he's on his outlap here, but if you remember in real life, the Haas had his, I believe it was Nico Hulkenberg, had his difficulties in real life. Through the stadium section, 13, 14, and 15, into 16, and then rounding the final corner here for turn 17, and his lap is going to be underway here. Let's go ahead and pull up the telemetry just to see what kind of top speeds we are getting. I'm going to assume into about 215. Into the braking zone he goes. No, 206. A little bit slower than I initially thought. Into the second DRS zone now. Pretty straightforward down into turn 4. Another 90-degree left-hander, followed by turn 5, which is actually slightly tighter than turn 4. Those couple of corners there do make up for some difficulties if you go side by side. Then through 6. A little bit of traffic ahead of him here as he's got the Red Bull and the McLaren. Was invalidated there. That was going through, what was that, turn 10. Gone too far on the inside curve. That's going to be the end of the lap for Brian. Mitch Burns making his way through Sector 1 now. Hightower, let's see what kind of speeds he hits. On the medium tires here is Hightower. Top speed we saw was 206 from Brian. That's 208 into the braking zone. Behind him, the Red Bull of, I want to say, the Noganator on his way in now. He'll only be at 202 by the time he gets in. Behind him, the Haas of Mack and the McLaren of Anbu Mason. Ferrari of Bobbert up next. Let's see what he hits. Caesar goes fastest, 117.914. Bobbert only hits about 205 that time. DB to Best goes second. 117.951. That's right close there between the two. As Matt goes P1. 116.903. That's a whole second. Slayer Eyes then goes P2. Not all that far behind. Well, 8.5 tenths. Mercedes coming out of the final corner now. I believe it's going to be Josh Sr. He's gone P7. Either that or Frenchie is actually just coming to start one here. Could be both. Yeah, it's actually Frenchie starting one here. Although we do have, what's that? That is Hightower, who I believe trying to get into the pit lane there may have spun it round. McLaren of Ambu Mason coming through the final stages of the lap now. What does he go? P7 for him, 118.419. Half a second off of his teammate of the Plums. We got Gab coming through the final corners now. To the line he goes. He's actually going to go third, 117.795 with a 9/10 of a second. So I tell you what, Mac has done really well in a class of his own at the moment. The rest of the grid actually seems fairly competitive for the time being. Never before have I ate dinner during a broadcast before, but here we go. Final Flame, 5-second penalty for a severe collision with Freeman. These two are off at the stadium section here. This is quite odd. Assuming that's the AlphaTauri in question. Not all that far behind. Is he going to have to come in here? Does he have wing damage? No. That's interesting. I wonder what's happened there. Final Flame starting his lap. Final couple of corners now. I believe that's the Red Bull of, it was Noganator on his way in, as well as the McLaren of Frenchie. So Final Flame, only one of two drivers out on track at the moment on competitive laps. I think Ambu just finished one. Looks like Tanel has joined. That's good news. Through 4, 5, and 6 now. Final Flame looking like he's doing pretty well here. The car, at that point, seems slightly understeery. As you see, he's trying to hook. Well, I tell you what, that car looks like it's struggling at the moment, because we saw there going through turn 7. That car looked like it had a fair bit of understeer, and then as he went through the rest of Sector 2, the back end of the car really looked as if it wanted to go around. Final Flame thankfully holds the car together, but does not hold the lap. Behind him, the Ferrari of Bobbert on an outlap here, has yet to put together a timed attempt. Mind you, second in points to Mitch Burns by 7 points. So Bobbert looking for a good week here. 10 minutes and 35 seconds left in the session now. Bobbert making his way through the final stages of the lap. Let's go along with him. Down the pit straight he goes. Time going now. Next up behind, I believe, is the Alpine of... It's either, both of them are on outlaps, fair enough. But 2:05 is the top speed for Bobbert into the braking zone. Behind him, the Haas of Brian Mosser's gone in. You're aware last season Brian Mosser was in that battle with, I believe it was the Noganator for the top step of the Drivers' Championship, and it was a fair bit of time where those two did come together, and Brian Mosser, who really led the championship throughout the first half of the season. The consistency quite lacked there towards the end of it, and unfortunately it slipped from his grasp, and A-Dub, who was in the Alfa Romeo at the time, took the championship at that point, but Brian Mosser at this time actually looks like he's on a pretty solid lap here as he makes his way in towards Sector 3. 59.484 looks pretty good heading into the stadium section now. Formerly a baseball stadium, this. Oh, he's had the lockup into the hairpin at turn 13. That may hurt him. Wasn't necessarily that high-speed section of the track. I wonder why he's locked up so heavily. Little slippage on the back end. He's going to come to the line here. He's going to be only P12, 120.046. So what we thought was going to be a good lap there from Brian doesn't look like he's going to be able to... that one's not going to be that competitive. Championship leader Mitch Burns on track now. 8 minutes, 50 seconds remaining here. Come into the braking zone. He's going to be well over 210. One of the fastest top speeds we've seen today. 213 he peaked at before going in. Fastest by about 7 miles an hour so far, which of what we've seen. We had both Noganator and Josh Sr. here. Now, this is interesting. The Red Bull, really, actually, I would say almost very close behind to Josh Sr. here. Perhaps is he getting somewhat of a tow. It's only about 2:03 that time for Noganator into the braking zone. So that's really odd to have two drivers on time to temps that close to each other. Hightower is actually slower by 3.5 tenths through Sector 1. Despite having one of the fastest top speeds we've seen so far. Maybe is this car struggling with understeer at the moment? Could be. And I think either way, he has backed off this lap. Yes, he has. The recharge light on here for the Alfa Romeo. Low fuel as well, so with 7:45 remaining here, he's going to be coming in here quite shortly. Next up is the Haas of Brian Mosser, who, I'd say he was a second faster that time. Yes, it was. Well, he's still currently P12, a flat 2 seconds off the pace of the leaders at the moment. Not ideal by any means. Next up, I believe we have the McLaren of the Plums, who I think has just finished one. He's P6 at the moment. Next up is going to be the pairing of both the Red Bull and the Mercedes here. Well, Josh Sr. temporarily goes P10, and then Noganator gets it right back. Those two at the moment separated by less than 8/100ths of a second, as original Paulie has just gone P12. Who was that just went up there? That was Final Flame, who, mind you, has a 5-place grid penalty for a collision with Freeman earlier on in the session. It's currently P3. DB the best, as he makes his way into the pits, currently resides a 10.5 behind Mac. Mac, who, so far, well, he's on an outlap here. I'm interested to see what he's got within that power unit of the Haas here, because I tell you what, for the most part of the session, he has looked rather in a class of his own. I believe that's at the McLaren of the Plums off ahead. Maybe he had a bit of a moment there coming out of turn 11. So Mac on the outlap here, the Ferrari of Tennell on the way into the braking zone for his one timed attempt that he's going to get. He's joined the session late. Unless there was a rule change I'm not aware of, this will be his one attempt. So he's got to make this a good one here. Has the Ferrari of Tennell. That means we're going to have 18 on the grid. Let's go along with Mac here. I'm very interested to see what the Haas has to offer here. 6 minutes to go. Rounding the final corner. Down the pit straight now he goes. Massively long pit straight. Into that first corner. Top speed for the Haas is 208 miles an hour, so he would, I would assume, have a more balanced setup compared to what we saw Mitch Burns have. That was all-out top straight-line speed. But the car looks slightly a handful to take care of, as he's gone purple sector 1 by, well, a quarter of a second, as Mac then. His best lap so far, 1:16.903. 5:15 remaining here. Exits turn 6 in towards 7. This is where I think he might be gaining the time, because a speed trap, fairly average, but this section of the track you can lose and gain so much time. And look at him. He's got that thing absolutely on rails, hasn't he? To the line he goes. He's faster by 0.5 of a second through that second sector. Into the baseball stadium now. 13, 14, and 15. If he holds it well, we might be looking at a qualifying time record here. Out of the final corner he goes. Mac's going to get provisional pole again. 1:16.118. Improves by 0.8 of a second. And now that leaves DeBeast behind by 9.5 tenths. That was Gab, the Red Bull, who's just gone P4. Beats out Caesar at the moment by 18/1000ths. Coming into the final stretch of qualifying here, we've got Brian Mosser in the Haas. Coming through the final stages of the lap here. He's about to put one together. Let's go along with him. I would assume Mac may have difficulty here. He's got 4 minutes left only making his way into turn 6 now. This is a fairly, I don't want to say long lap, but he's really got to get himself back to the pits, although his lap looks good. He may even still hold on to provisional pole. Brian Mosser on track now, making his way into the first section of corners 1, 2, and 3. Holds it pretty well. 3.5 minutes remaining now. Heavy over that inside sausage curb at the apex, and he's lost a lot of time just then. The timing line he goes, he is faster by 3/100. Still a lot of lap left to go. As what's happened with Paulie, he's retired in the pits. Guess that's just going to be the end of his day. Brian Mosser making his way through the second sector now. Now he had that, I would say, fairly big mistake there going through turn 3. Oh, look how much he's having to lift here going through the second sector. That's something that Mac wasn't having to do. You can tell this car, and he's still 0.3 of a second faster. He'll get at least Paulie, maybe Josh Sr. in the Noganator if he can keep it up. But this car looks a relative handful here. I'm assuming that previous attempt was very not good for Brian Mosser. But the line he goes, he'll actually go 10th. 7/10 of a second improvement. He'll get past Mitch Burns as well by 3/1000ths of a second. Mitch Burns at the moment is better by 3/100ths through Sector 1. 2:20 to go here. The Haas of Mac is in the pits, and I don't believe he's going to be coming back out. He probably doesn't need to. DB DeBest is going on an out lap here, coming into the stadium section. He's going to be one to keep an eye on. Mac has retired in the pits, so he's done all he can do. He feels fairly confident with his lap. And, well, I don't blame him. I believe we've got the Ferrari of Tennell, who has decided to start another one here. Now remember, he did join the session late. Now this is now the second time we've seen him on track. Maybe did he invalidate the first one? Frenchie's gone P16 at the moment. Only a couple drivers left here. We've got DB DeBest going through. Final Flame 116.001. The AlphaTauri with the 5-place grid penalty. I don't want to say smacks max time out of the water here. That's almost a 10th and a half. Well, it's over a 10th. 10th and a quarter. DB making his way, what does that say? Well, that was 3/100ths faster then. Well, it looks like as if he's backed off here. I wonder, he must be recharging here. He thinks maybe he can get a better one next time round. Josh Sr. starting one here. Bobbert Yates not on track. Tennell coming to the line. Tennell's going to go P6, 117.390. Mitch Burns is retired. The McLaren of Plums, Anbu is off coming out of turn 6. I believe he's just trying to get out of the way. 30-some-odd seconds to go here. Gab making his way out of the final corner. He's about to start one here. DB DeBest looks like as if he's on the recharge. Tennell is retired on track, that being going through the first sector. So DB DeBest is going to be starting another one here. Final Flame's going to be on his way in. We've got Caesar going down the pit straight, although he's just finished one, so he's P5 at the moment. Slayer Eyes making his way through Sector 2, although he doesn't look like he's on a flyer. Anbu on his way in. Josh Sr. making his way, although, what does that say, 8/100ths faster. The time being. At the line, yeah, so Josh Sr. about 0.2 of a second quicker so far. Freeman going through Sector 1. Slayerized, as we said, I believe, coming through the final stages to come into the pits. Yes, he is. Well, not in the pits, but he's not in a flyer. So his time expires here. Let's see if Josh Sr. is able to improve. So far, he has. He's gone P11, 118.125. Next up is the Red Bull of Gab, who, for the time being, only 4/100ths faster. It's not going to help him. He's going to need a good final sector here, probably perfect. Behind him, the Williams of Caesar is purple Sector 2. Recharge is on for the Williams. Gab coming through the final pace of the lap here, and he has decided to pull in. DB the Best has invalidated. Caesar through the final corner now. Caesar will go third. 117.033. So that will be a net second place for that of Caesar. As Mac's going to wind up on pole with Final Flame's 5-place grid penalty for the collision. So it'll be Mac on pole, Caesar second, DeBest third, Gab fourth, Final Flame fifth. But nonetheless, a good lap from Final Flame. One of the few laps I would even believe in. I mean, I don't know the Division 1 times, but a 116 flat. That does sound very, very impressive to me, has to be said. So your starting grid then for the Mexican Grand Prix. Final Flame does take the pole time. He's got a 5-place grid penalty. Max second, Caesar third, DeBest fourth, Gab fifth, Tanel sixth, Slayer I seventh, Plums eighth, ninth is Ambu Mason, 10th Ferrari 11th, Josh Senior 12th is Hightower, 13th Brian Mosser, 14th Mitch Burns, Noganator 15th, Paulie 16th, Freeman 17th, and for rounding out the field, P18 is that of Frenchie. Well, I tell you what, the pole time, Final Flame, very good. Mac is the only driver relatively close. Everybody else is outside of a second, but I tell you what, the gap from that P3 all the way down to 9th is another second. So I tell you what, a lot of competition to be had here in the midfield. This should be a very good, entertaining Grand Prix. Okay, it looks as if we're back. This is the third lobby. Third time. This is the third lobby. We're back. We are well into the 10 o'clock hour now. I was hoping we'd be, a normal lobby, we'd probably be almost done at this point. Holy mackerel. The Vegas Raiders, with 8 minutes to go in the third quarter, they are walloping the Chargers 49-7. Dearie me, we're in scoregami territory, ladies and gentlemen. We are dangerously close to scoregaming here. If we don't, I would actually be more upset than anything. I'm not even like a Raiders fan. I did go to the Raiders Stadium back last year when I was in Las Vegas, but That is wild. Again, I've been saying it for literal years that the Chargers are bad. They're frauds. Chargers have the worst play calling in the NFL aside from the Chiefs. What's his name? The offensive coordinator there needs to go. What's his name? He's been there forever. Brandon Staley. Yeah. Dude just needs to go. Anyways, we're here in Mexico. Formation lap is off. Once again, that has been the common denominator with the lobby restarts that we've had to have had. I guess Division 3 had difficulties as well. So they have restarted their lobby respectively. But we are here. Nearing into the halfway point of the 10 o'clock hour. 22:31 on my watch. And here we go. Oh my god, the race is about to get 3, 4, and eventually 5 lights. And we are off here in Division 2. Josh Senior drive-through penalty for jumping the start. Mac gets away well. Caesar on the softs to the inside. He's going to have him by the time they get into the first corner. Caesar gets that jump. Oh, I tell you what, look at the grid fan out into this first corner. Caesar down to the inside. Is he going to be able to stay ahead? No! He gets touched by the Ferrari and the Alpine. And Tanel goes round, and he is tumbling down the order. And it's a huge pileup going through turn 1. This looks like a traffic jam. My goodness me, an absolute parking lot going through turn 1 as several cars fall down the order, including now Noganator losing several spots. Brian Monster, I believe, in there as well. Noganator trying around the outside, nothing there. It's a 1.5 second gap between Mac and Caesar. Gab close behind, but goodness me, what a conundrum we have had in the opening stages. And now Hightower gone round. Remember, he's, I believe, the leader of the championship by 7 points over Bobbert Yates, and now there he is, all the way down to P16. Has he got wing damage too? I'm not sure what's happened with him, but either way, as Bobbert getting around Frenchie, actually no, it's Frenchie going down the order. This is coming out of, I believe, turn 11 on the way to the stadium section. What a massive conundrum off the start, and what is already shaping up to be one of the most odd Grand Prix we've ever had in Division 2 is behind. The Mercedes of Josh Sr. getting overtaken left and right, as he's going to have to come in and serve his drive-thru. And that, as the clock strikes 22:33, is the first lap of the Grand Prix. Mac now has a 2-second lead over Caesar. Caesar under pressure from Gab here in the early goings. We have a yellow flag into the first corner again. Brian Mosser is off deep into the corner. Final Flame has picked up 3 seconds for corner cutting. I think Brian Mosser may have had help as the two Alfa Romeos are side by side, making their way down the straight now. Final Flame losing position to Bobbert Yates. Paulie losing it to Plums on the way into turn 4. The grid, I would say, starting to be spread out here, but that's just not even the case, as we've got several cars very much within striking distance of each other, especially those from position 12 on back. The top 8 cars, minus that of the Red Bull of Gab to Caesar, all separated by a second. As now, coming into the stadium section for the second time now, what was that? We almost had a move there. Final Flame was about to make something happen past the Ferrari of Bobbert Yates. He's got his teammate of Tennell in behind. As into the stadium they go, and out the stadium they go. Gab has the fastest lap. Not necessarily closing in on Caesar ahead, but he's not losing time either. There goes the Ferrari of Bobbert Yates trying to look down to the inside of Noganator. Nothing there. Final Flame in pursuit. There he goes. No DRS, but he'll have the right side in with the soft compound tires that he's on. That one was going to be rather easy for the Aston Martin here. Oh, but as he outbraked himself, well, I tell you what, he almost looked like he did. He's going to try to send it down to the inside of Noganator here. He's going to have to go over the apex curb. Goes up the track. Goes into the Ferrari of Bobbert Yates. Somehow no contact otherwise. A little bit, but not much. Bobbert Yates down to the inside. He'll have the better line into turn 4. Side by side, around the outside. Oh, contact being made there. And Bobbert Yates being pushed to the outside will lose the position to both his teammate and the Aston Martin to Final Flame. Tennell nearly spun the car coming out of turn 6. And now Bobbert Yates trying to strike back. Final Flame with a 3-second penalty. Whoa, does he hold on? No! Final Flame does spin the car, but thankfully doesn't hit anything as he goes for a quick 360 going through turns 7 and 8. The two Ferraris, look at this. Tennell's going to try to send it around the outside through the stadium section of the track. Rarely do you get overtakes here. And Tennell nearly made one happen, but it wasn't quite close enough. He will have DRS down the pit straight. That's going to be awfully helpful for him, as well as the Ferrari of Bobbert Yates. The two Ferraris here in position. Tennell's going to have to go down the inside. Well, I tell you what, that may have accidentally not helped Bobbert Yates, although Bobbert Yates is going to dive for the position. Does he get it? Over Noganator, there's contact there. Well, I tell you what, Tennell, by going down to the inside, forced Noganator wide and made that maneuver a lot more difficult than it had to be for his teammate of Bobbert Yates. Meanwhile, Paulie within 2/10 of Frenchie here. As on the way in towards turn 4 they go. We'll have a quick look at the positives and negatives here. Freeman up 11 positions, and I'm pretty sure a lot of that was just staying out of the traffic jam in the opening lap. He's up 11, Frenchie's up 6, Noganator up 5. Caesar picking up 3 seconds for multiple warnings. Unfortunate for him, in the negative direction, it does have to belong to Final Flame, who's down 9 positions. Josh Sr. down 7 after having to pit. Oh, deep into the corner there is the Red Bull of Noganator. That was a very odd position for him to have had to go wide. Oh, and he's made contact with Paulie. Well, Noganator then, I don't know if he's had help going deep into turn 12, but he's absolutely missed the corner. He goes back on track, ends up side by side with Paulie. Contact was made, but for now, everything looks to be sorted. The top 5 outside of a couple of seconds of each other there. Noganator's going to get around Paulie rather easily, and now Mitch Burns is going to send it down to the inside as well. So Paulie loses 2 spots there by the time they get into the first corner. Frenchie now is within half a second of Plums. Plums is in a tight spot here. He's a second, almost a second and a half behind Bobbert Yates, so he's not going to have DRS now. So this is going to be a huge benefit here for Frenchie, but Plums goes heavy on the brakes in through 5. Prevents the forward progress there of Frenchie, and now it gets away well out of 6. And Frenchie's going to lose a lot of ground here. Good battling towards the back end of the grid here. As Noganator leads the charge with Mitch Burns, Paulie, and Final Flame all in this. Making their way through Sector 2 they go. The Red Bull of Noganator goes wide. This may set up a good move for Mitch Burns. On the way into 12, he's going to go down the inside. And once again, Noganator for the second time in 2 laps goes deep into turn 12. That time definitely all on his own error. And yet again, well, I'm not sure if he's lost any front wing with the Red Bull that time. Clearly went deep into the corner, and it looked to me, at least from my initial looking, that was all on his own. And it will now bring up the tail end of the grid as Final Flame goes down to the inside of Paulie. Paulie giving him plenty of room. Does he tag onto the slipstream of Mitch Burns ahead? He does, kind of. Noganator 5 seconds for speeding into the pit lane. Oh, Final Flame. Well, I tell you what, Final Flame, I think was going to be definitely on there to get a move over Mitch Burns. Gets a lot of oversteer going off of the exit curb coming out of turn 3. And I think he's going to have to wait for another opportunity to make something happen there. Into the top 10 we go. Plums is about 5.5 tenths away from Bobbert Yates for that 9th spot. 5.5 tenths. Through Sector 2 they go. Oh, Plums, I tell you what, the back end of the car wanted to come round then. It didn't, but it looked very close indeed. Final Flame, does he choose to dive on Mitch Burns here into 12? No, he doesn't. Although a little bit later on the brakes. Meanwhile, Slayer Eyes now within time of Gab for the 3rd spot. Mac has 4.5 seconds to Caesar. Caesar has 4.5 seconds to Gab. And here goes Slayer Eyes. Well, he had a peek down to the inside, not much there. Freeman was looking for it on the McLaren of Van Boom Mason as well, but nothing there. Still searching. He'll have DRS again here, but he's not gotten that good of a jump coming out of turn 3, as Final Flame does get around Mitch Burns for that 12th spot into the first corner. Slayer Eyes 5 tenths of a second here, top of your picture as well. There goes Freeman. I think he was about to have a go to the inside of Van Boom Mason, didn't have enough room to make it happen. And you can absolutely believe that those soft tires are starting to wear away now. 2.5 tenths here. Slayer Eyes just got to move on Gab here shortly. Gab does not have DRS to anybody ahead. Gab chooses to block the inside. Slayer Eyes will have to take the long way around. Red Bull goes deep. Slayer Eyes doesn't have anywhere to go, and Gab will hold on to the position again as Brian Mosser picks up 3 seconds for multiple warnings as well down in P16. Plums within 4 tenths of Bobbert Yates for the 9th spot. This battle here is for the podium. And Boom Mason trying to get into this battle as well, but he's just simply not close enough just yet. 2 tenths of a second in closing here. Slayer Eyes is going to look for the inside. Yes, he does. Slayer Eyes does get that one with plenty of room to spare. Nicely done, but Gab is not done. If Gab gets a good exit, although he's not going to have DRS. No, he won't, because he was ahead of the detection zone. As it looks behind, we got Paulie and Mitch Burns swapping positions there, as well as Josh Sr. and Brian Mosser. Good battling it's been up and down the grid so far. DB DeBest is trying to poke his head into this battle for this, what will eventually be the podium spot. As this battle, which is head by Slayer Eyes here, now includes Slayerized, Gab, Anbu, Freeman, and DB the Best. Looks like Paulie and Mitch Burns battling it out here. They're side by side, coming out of turn 6. This can only end one of two ways, one of them being poorly. And, well, that wasn't the way it ended. Mitch Burns actually cleanly took him around the outside that time. Nicely done. And into a tough spot of the circuit as well. So through the stadium they go. Slayer Eyes leads the charge here, now outside of DRS range on Gab. Gab is going to have a tough time here. Anbu behind, and Freeman. The Alpine of DB does not have DRS. He's losing tenths of a second rapidly now. Oh, I tell you what, Gab was going very slow just then. Anbu had to go down to the inside. Freeman nearly ran clean into the back of the Red Bull, and Freeman goes round. Somehow gets the car under lock then before hitting the inside wall. But he's going to be losing positions here. He's going to be dropping down roughly to P12. Back on track he goes. Tires still hot. Final Flame has missed the corner. Will come out ahead of Freeman, and this is suddenly a battle for the 10th spot, although it shouldn't have been. They're side by side. Both of them having DRS. Final Flame's going to try it around the outside. Wow, I tell you what an interesting turn of events these two have found themselves in. Now battling side by side in the turn 6. Wow, look at this! The McLaren, the Mercedes of Frenchie watches along. If one of them makes a mistake, he'll have the spot. Well, there goes Final Flame to the outside. Freeman's gone off track as well. Frenchie tries the inside. I think temporarily, though, he went off track. Oh, the Alpine of Paulie comes screaming through. And both Paulie and Frenchie miss the corner. Well, Paulie either made one hell of a mistake there, or that was a dive and a half that's gone wrong. So yeah, mistake either way, it seems. For the top of the grid, Anbu Mason getting around Slayer Eyes there with room to spare, as behind, DB the Best getting around Gab for the 5th spot. Gab has lost quite a few positions here, and being that he started on the soft tire, is going to happen here shortly. Although a driver who has not lost positions is that of Caesar, who despite having a 3-second time penalty remains confident on those soft tires and is ahead of Anbu Mason by nearly 7 seconds. Josh Sr. and Hightower into the corner. They're side by side into turn 1. Looks as if, wow, they are still battling it out here. Look at these two. Goodness me. Side by side here, coming off the corner. Heading down into turn 4. Still side by side here. Look at this. Josh Sr.'s going to have to go deep. He's going to need room into turn 5. Does he get ahead of the Alfa Romeo? Only temporarily. And he's going to have to take the... He's gone deep into turn 6. He's going to have the worst exit. Hightower may have a look. No, he's not quite close enough. Oh, and Hightower's gone round. The back of the car is completely slipped away from Hightower just then. And that will pretty much eliminate him from the proceedings at that point. Tell you what, the battles have been non-stop so far. Slayer Eyes within half a second of Anbu Mason here. He's not going to be close enough to make anything happen yet. Although, critically, Mitch Burns, Freeman's actually on his way in, so the first driver of those on the softs on the way into the pit lane. I'm assuming it's going to be the hard tires going on here. Front wing going on for Freeman as well. It's actually mediums. Didn't look as if they made a front wing change. It was quite quick. Slayerized up there in P4. Now finds himself half a second behind Anbu Mason for the 3rd spot. Sorry, I had a slight technical difficulty there. You've not missed much. Slayer Eyes still within half a second of Anbu. Here we have a yellow flag going through Sector 2. Well, whatever it was, it sorted itself out quickly as Frenchie and Paulie really close to each other here. I hate to go away from that battle for the 3rd spot. Is now down to the inside of Slayer Eyes. He will get the spot. Does Anbu have the ability to hold on? He's still right close. He's got more battery as well. Slayer Eyes will get the double dosage of DRS here. Coming out of turn 3, I think. I think he'll get it. Yes, he will. DRS activated for Slayer Eyes. And he is going to begin to pull away from the McLaren here. Well, not really. Tennell and Gab battling it out now. Turn 4, they go. Tennell outbreaks the Red Bull then. Nicely done. It's now 9/10 of a second for DB. Trying to get to Andrew Mason. DB is, I would say, rather flown under the radar here. He's kind of poked his head into these battles, but not much has happened surrounding him. Meanwhile, a little bit further back, the Mercedes of Frenchie. Within 0.3 of a second there on F1 Pauly, going through turn 6. Exiting the corner they go. Tennell 3-second penalty for multiple warnings. If we look at our penalty tracker at the moment, 5 drivers on 3-second penalties. Noganator on 5 seconds for speeding into the pit lane. Here goes Frenchie looking for it down to the inside. Heading into turn 12. Gutsy place to make it happen. Does he go with it? Yes, he does. But on the outside through 13, I tell you what, Pauly, I think the track layout may have came to his advantage there because he really was in a tight spot and manages to stay ahead of the Mercedes. Very nicely done to both of them for keeping it clean. That part's for sure. DRS activated here. DB DeBest trying to make the move on Andrew Mason in towards turn 4. Not going to happen. 3-car battle here for that 3rd spot. Head of the train being slayerized here. Tennell and Gab have both rather fallen outside of this battle. Tennell behind by about 2 seconds to the Alpine in question. Meanwhile, the Plums within 0.4 of a second of Gab. DB nearly lost the car just then, going through turn 12. 7 and 8. We have a yellow flag. Oh, it's the Williams of Freeman. He's gone off again. This time coming out of turn 3, and the car looks to be in one piece. Not ideal. But, well, yeah, nothing else to say about that, just not ideal. I would assume those drivers, if there's any left on the soft tires, are going to be coming in here shortly. There goes DB DeBest down to the inside. On Andrew Mason, he's going to have it with time to spare. The Red Bull of Gab is in the pits. I would assume it's going to be the mediums for the Red Bull here. Is that the mediums? No, it's the hards. Apologize. Are they the mediums? I can't tell with the light. Oh, it is the hards. Sorry about that. My eyes kind of were deceiving me there. Mitch Burns on the way in. Medium tires go on. Andrew Mason within 0.4 of a second of DB DeBest. Tennell is actually, well, not long ago, he was about 2 seconds out of this battle. He's about within that 1 second gap again. Doing his best to remain relevant here for the battle for the podium. Although DB DeBest has now lost a second to Slayerized. So the battle at hand lies between the McLaren of Anbu and the Alpine, the aforementioned Alpine. Behind them, it looks like we got a good battle here. There goes Gab down to the... he's actually going to try it around the outside of Frenchie here. Josh Sr. can look on. I tell you what, Gab has gone right deep into the corner. Frenchie's really had to back off, so he's going to lose the spot to both his teammate and the Red Bull. Frenchie looks like at the moment he might be struggling with that Mercedes. We'll have to keep an eye on him. Final flame... Bobbert's on the way in. It's 0.4 of a second here between Anbu and DB. Slayerized ahead by 1.2. Slayerized gets a much better exit out of turn 3, it looked. Although Anbu's going to disagree because he is still relatively ahead at this point. On the way into turn 4. DB DeBest doing well. Not really under pressure from the drivers behind. He's held his car rather confidently so far. Two Alfa Romeos, 14 and 15th. 0.3 of a second from each other. Hopefully no conundrums there. Tennell now within 0.6 of a second of Anbu here. All 4 of these cars in DRS range of each other, as we're about 2 laps away from the halfway point of the Grand Prix. Long one here today, that part's for sure. Gab is within 0.3, now 2.5 of Pauly. making their way through Sector 2 and almost into Sector 3. Whoever gets the better exit out of 11. DRS activated here for Gab, trying around the outside. And he's going to have that one rather early by the time they get into turn 12. Nicely done. DB not close enough to Slayer Eyes to make anything happen that time, although he is firmly within DRS range now, so that's going to help him. Anbu slightly falling behind the two cars ahead. Brian Monster 3 seconds for corner cutting. Where's he just come out of? Probably Final Flame is in the pits, that's why he's losing positions. It's 0.4 of a second here. Sinel, despite having the 3-second time penalty, still doing his best to stay in this battle. Mitch Burns' fastest lap so far, down in 14th on fresh mediums, I would think. Once again, 4-car battle for the 3rd spot here. Mac has a 10-second advantage over Caesar for the lead of the Grand Prix. Mac, well, he did get out-qualified on timing. Started on pole with the 5th-place grid penalty handed to the Alpha Tauri of whoever it was. I think it was Final Flame, who's in an Aston Martin at the moment. I don't really know why, but he is. Into the pits is the Alpine of DB the Best, as well as Caesar. Tinel going down the inside of Anbu Mason, this being for the 3rd spot. Slayer Eyes gets promoted to 2nd, but he's not going to have to worry with these two battling behind them. What do we have here? Caesar goes to the hards, and I think DB's going to go to the hards as well. Yes, he is. So it's interesting, the game recommended softs to mediums. That's not been the case. Paulie's losing positions here rapidly. Bobbert within half a second of Josh Sr., not close enough yet to make anything happen. Sinel is right close to Slayer Eyes here, within 3.5 tenths as they exit turn 6. Sinel doing really good. Slayer Eyes does not seem fazed by the cars behind him so far. He's looked very, very comfortable at the head of this train. He's going to have to start thinking about strategy, especially surrounding the cars behind him, as the Haas of Mac on his way in now. Remember, he started on the mediums. So 17 laps is what those mediums are good for. Do we see the rest of the top 3 pit this time? And Slayer Eyes does, Tinel does, Anbu does. Plums, being on the hards, will stay out. Interesting to see what happens here. So Slayer Eyes comes in. It'll be the hards for Slayer Eyes. Anbu comes in. It'll be the hards for him. Tinel, I believe, also on the hard tires. And no, Tinel's on the softs. Interesting. How many times has Tinel stopped? He didn't start on the softs, did he? I don't think he did. That is a bold position. Mac has gone to the softs as well. As Tinel trying around the outside of Slayer Eyes into the first corner on cold tires, the both of them. This is wild here. And yeah, Tinel does them cleanly. Very nicely done. Well, this is an odd situation now because we've got both Mac and Tinel on soft tires. The majority of everybody else who has pit has gone to the hards. A couple of drivers have taken the mediums, but that seems like a very odd place to be at the moment, as Mac here is within 2.5 tenths of Plums for the eventual lead of the Grand Prix. Mac's going to take it around the outside, and he's going to have this one rather easily. And as we're about halfway through the Grand Prix here, I think Mac is going to probably have a very straightforward way to the end, unless we have ourselves a game-changing safety car, which is not out of the question. Closest battle on track happens to be Final Flame to the back end of Bobbert Yates here through the stadium. Definitely having a look here is the Aston Martin. I know he's got, 3 seconds of penalty. Out of the final corner they go. Final Flame is going to have very good acceleration here. The fastest lap of the race on the hards as well, 1:20.102. And down to the inside, Gab's actually getting around Slayer Eyes as we speak, and he's done that one well before getting into the first corner. So the Red Bull taking P6. Snell about 0.6 of a second behind DB to best for P4. At the moment, Max still has a commanding lead over the rest of the grid here. Once again, Snell now within 0.3 of DB. Through Sector 2 they go. Let's see, how clean do they hold it? DRS activated here for the Ferrari. Down in towards turn 12, he's really going to have a look for it down to the inside. He's going to force DB wide. Mack has gone 1:19 flat, fastest lap of the Grand Prix. And Snell's going to make that one happen through the stadium. Wow. Once again, a very unorthodox place to make something happen. Very nicely done. His final flame nearly had a look at Ambu Mason as well, that being for the 8th spot. Out of turn 17, they go. Aston Martin down to the inside. He's going to try to tag along here with his teammate of Slayerized. Final Flame does get around the McLaren. He has about 1.5 seconds to his teammate ahead, who is currently battling the Red Bull of Gab, so that is going to allow Final Flame into this picture for the position here. DB is still within position on Tunnell. He's not necessarily gaining, but he's not falling far behind either. Still hanging about 0.8 of a second. As in through Sector 2 they go. Through turn 7. Again, these corners are where the mistakes are going to be made here. If we have some sort of game-changing accident, it's going to be going through those corners. As now Slayerized tries to have a look down to the inside of the Red Bull. Nothing there. Final Flame is in this picture as well. And look at this. Slayerized is going to cede that position to Final Flame. As we have a yellow flag going through turn 2. It's Hightower who's gone off. Car against the barrier then. I think he's far enough out of the way to make sure we're not going to get any safety car. No front wing lost. No harm, no foul. Green flag stays on track. Final Flame gets around Gab. That being for the 6th spot. As Slayerized and Anbu side by side through turn 1 for P8. Tunnell is now within 0.4 of a second of Caesar here. These two both on 3-second penalties. They are battling for position. Very close between these two. DB the best, trying to poke his head into this battle. He's still 2.5 seconds away. Through 9, 10, and 11 they go. Tunnell, he'll have DRS, 0.2 of a second in closing. Looks to the inside. I think he's going to have that one well into turn 12. Yes, he does. Nicely done from the Ferrari, who I believe occupies P3 in the standings as well. So at the moment, he'll be overtaking his teammate for 2nd. And I think he may just be overtaking Mitch Burns for the lead of the championship. Well, I could be wrong about that, as Plums is on his way in. It was Mitch Burns who led the championship coming into today by 7 points over that of Bobbert Yates. Tunnell only 4 points behind Bobbert. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Tunnell comes out today ahead of the championship standings. At the moment, he does have a couple of seconds of penalty here, as well as Caesar, as they're actively battling for this 2nd spot. The Red Bull of the Noganator just kind of chilling about these couple of cars here, trying not to create too much of a disturbance. We had Noganator. Biggest problem was him. He went deep into that turn 12 twice. First time, we're not sure. Second time, we're very sure that it was on pure error, unless he did get help from behind that we didn't see. As we are getting into the business end of the Grand Prix now. We do have a fair grouping of cars here making their way through the stadium section. Tunnell is within position on Hightower here. Now, Tunnell is going to get DRS to get around the back marker here. So that is going to help the Ferrari massively. Caesar's not close enough to have DRS. DB doesn't have DRS. Only one that has DRS in this battle is actually Slayer Eyes, trying to make something happen past Gab for P6. Has a peek down to the inside, he's not nearly close enough. Although I tell you what, well, I didn't think he was. He almost had a fair shot. Oh, Gab has lost the car. Going through turn 2. Gab is in the grass and has now lost positions all the way down to 9th. Well, that could have been much worse. That car violently shot right across the track in front. Well, the Aston Martin is Slayerized. That'll promote him to 6th, Ambu 7th, and now Bobbert to 8th. As we have Freeman and Pauly battling it out for the 12th spot. That was a wild moment of oversteer there for Gab, who, despite being on the hard tires, has looked within rather control of his car today. Rare mistake we've seen, but a mistake it is. Coming up to 10 laps to go here in a little bit. Final flame within 6.5 tenths of DB to best. As they exit turn 17, down the pit straight they go. Yes, DRS will be activated here for the Aston Martin. He's going to have a look down to the inside. Well, I tell you what, he had a thought about it. Didn't really have any action to be had. As Plums is going to be searching for the inside here on Gab. Is he going to get that one? Yes, he is, and rather convincingly as well. Nicely done from the McLaren. Nothing that the Red Bull could have done. Final flame now down to the inside on DB as they go in towards turn 4. They have back markers ahead of him. That specifically of Hightower, who has yet to get out of the way, but in fairness, Hightower has yet to be a nuisance to this battle. There he goes. DB has almost lost the car coming out of turn 6. So he's going to lose time back to the Aston Martin. So Hightower, I would say honestly, while it looked that Hightower was in the way of that battle, he actually really wasn't, because he was going fast enough to allow the drivers behind him to continue at racing speed. Hightower will pick up 5 seconds for ignoring the blue flag now, as he currently resides ahead of the Alpine at the best. But again, Hightower wasn't going slow enough to be in the way. You know, sometimes you'd almost prefer, as Final Flame getting down to the inside of Caesar, you'd almost prefer to have that back marker ahead of you to give you the tow. Like we saw that with Tenel, as he had, I believe it was either Hightower or Noganator that was giving him the DRS down the pit straight. And I mean, Hightower was going quick enough to not really be a nuisance to him, and it helped him just flat out. I'd be kind of surprised if he picks up a penalty. I mean, he has the one in-game. I would doubt he gets reported for it, as Plum's getting down to the inside of his teammate here for the 7th spot. Bobber Yates trying to make his move on the 2 McLarens here, although he's gone heavy over the apex curb through turn 5. Through 6 they go. Looks pretty even on acceleration at 0.6 of a second, and starting to close here. Bobbert's had himself a very quiet day so far. For being second in the championship, I tell you what, he's kind of just hung around. But what he has done is he's put himself in a position at least to get around Mitch Burns in the standings. He will not be getting around his teammate of Tenel, who, once again, I believe at the moment, is on cue to take the lead of the championship standings. Plum's within half a second of Slayerized here, coming out of the final corner. Next time by will be 10 laps to go, as Plum's with DRS. Slayerized is all by himself, and there goes the McLaren, nicely done. DB the best trying to find something to get past the Williams. He's not close enough. Bobbert's going to get around Ambu with time to spare into turn 1. DB's in position to have himself a good result here, but he needs to get around Caesar to put himself, relatively in position to have the penalty to come into play for Final Flame. Because as Final Flame occupies 3rd, he has a 2.3 second gap behind a Caesar, who also has the penalty. So he'll need to extend that, but DB at the moment is outside of that range, so DB will have to get around the Williams here if he wants a shot at that third place. At the moment, though, I tell you what, it is a fair battle on track between these three cars. Tennell, second place, 17 seconds behind Mack for the lead of the Grand Prix, as Tennell is on his way in. That, I have to say, quite bold. I'm actually wondering why he's decided to stop. It's going to be soft tires going on. As Mack has made his way in as well. Either that or he's made one hell of a mistake. I'm not rightly sure. No, he's on fresh softs. Yeah, so he's just pit. As the Haas of Mack. I mean, he doesn't really have to worry. The Red Bull of Noganator I wouldn't say in his way there. He'll have DRS. Well, I guess not. But, will end up getting around the Red Bull. So interesting, it's a two-stopper here. For some of these drivers. Mack, 2 stops. Tennell, 2 stops, which is surprising to me. I think, I don't think it was a planned 2-stop. I think he, more or less, it was one of those he had to pit again. Not quite sure. Mack is within 7.5 tenths here of Final Flame. For the outright lead of the Grand Prix. Of course, Final Flame has the penalty at this point in time, but Mack is in position where he may want to even genuinely overtake him on track. Now within 10 laps to go. 4/10 of a second in closing here. Mack looking for it. If anything dramatic happens now, well, we're going to know what's happened. 4/10 of a second in closing. Mack's going to try it here. He's going to have to go the long way around through turn 1, but I'm afraid that one is going to be quite easy for him. Final Flame had a fair shout at holding on there. But I'm afraid those fresh softs are just going to be way too much, as then picks up 3 seconds for multiple warnings as he goes wide. As, we got an interesting one going here. Tennell overtakes Anbu Mason, but Bobbert Yates lost, I think, 2 spots in that exchange. Final Flame up to 6 seconds in penalty now, so that will help, I believe, as Hightower has picked up 5 seconds for crossing the pit lane exit white line. Not one you see too often. Bobbert within 0.3 of a second here of Anbu. Quick update here in the NFL. It's 63-14. Raiders beating the Chargers. 8:25 remaining. Definitely on pace for scoregami here. If not, I would honestly be surprised. That'd be quite sad as well. I like scoregami. So Bobbert Yates within 0.4 of a second of Anbu. Here we have a yellow flag. The Red Bull of Noganator, I believe, is he getting out of the way? No, he has actually spun that car. Thankfully, he's going to keep it relatively out of the way. As behind them, Tennell and Slayer Eyes side by side down the pit straight. Tennell is going to get around the Aston Martin then. And now Bobbert Yates trying to look for it on Anbu here. Anbu's going to switch lines on the track. Bobbert's going to have to go the long way around. He's going to do it rather easily on the way into turn 1. Oh, for God's sakes. I just threw my phone legitimately across my pedals. Dearie me. I'm catching cords and everything now as I try to get my phone back. That's the second time I have legitimately, seriously dropped my phone today. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a couple of fresh cracks in this bud. But anyways, so Mack's gone fastest. That was in the 118s that lap. As Anbu Mason within 0.5 of a second here on Bobbert Yates for the 8th spot. Currently the closest battle on track. Minus that of Josh Senior with Mitch Burns and the other Alfa Romeo behind. In fact, this is an interesting one here. Mitch Burns going to have DRS to his teammate. The aid of Hightower there, going to give him a great slingshot maneuver. Good old Talladega Nights type thing there. As Mitch Burns is now right close to the Mercedes ahead. See if Mitch Burns can do something here down to the inside. They'll have DRS, and yes, that one's going to be made. Very nicely done. And you have to credit Hightower for that overtake being made. 4.5 tenths here. Anbu doing his best to get to Bobber Yates. He's not right close enough, however. As now Tennell within 4/10 of a second of Plums. I think Plums may have had a mistake. Or something. Because Tennell is rapidly closing in the McLaren here. McLaren goes deep into the corner. Tennell actually gets into the back of the McLaren that time. Hopefully no wing damage for the Ferrari. It's going to have a peek down to the inside. Well, this is a weird place to make something happen. Through turn 17 they go. DRS activated. Now. And the McLaren will have it as well because DB DeBest are also within range on them. Look at this! Well, Tennell's going to get 2 spots in one there. And the Plums is going to overtake DB DeBest on the way into turn 1. DB was a sitting duck, not having DRS in the 2 cars get around their right side. Tennell, unbeknownst to him, has pulled off a beautiful double overtake. As Plums now down to the inside, he's going to try to outbrake the Ferrari here. Yeah, that would have been a ballsy one for sure. And thankfully, he's had a better think at that one. Bobber Yates within 1/4 of a second of Anbu here for the 8th spot. Tennell currently occupies P4. He had pit twice on the 2-stop strategy. Mack ahead, 7.5 seconds ahead of Final Flame. Coming to the line now will be 5 laps to go here in Mexico. It's 0.2 of a second for Tennell. Really close to Caesar here. These two on 3-second penalties apiece. This is an outright battle for position here. Well, let me tell you, Tennell needs every position he can get. Because if he can, manage to stay ahead of his, well ahead of Bobber Yates, I think, again, he will have the outright lead of the championship here. But he's going to have to get around Caesar first. Going to try the left-hand side. Yes, he will. So Tennell moves up to P3 temporarily, albeit, as Plums is in position here. Will absolutely be taking at least that 3rd step on the podium. Freeman, 3-second penalty for multiple warnings. And I tell you what, Plums actually, that car nearly got away from him coming on to turn 3. That one got close indeed as Anbu Mason within... Actually, I tell you what, we got Mitch Burns. Sorry, Paulie's on the way in. Anbu Mason 0.4 of a second here on Bobber Yates for what will be the 8th spot. And it looks at the moment as if Anbu is going to have this one. Oh, sorry, Bobber Yates is going to hold him off for now. Anbu's going to have to wait. 0.6 of a second in closing here for the Plums as he's trying to make his way to Caesar. Remember, Plums in position here to, I believe, take 3rd place after penalties are applied. I think Final Flame will at least take... Final Flame, I think, is in good position to at least take 2nd, considering the 2 drivers behind him are on 3 seconds of penalty. Plums here down to the inside. That will put him into 4th. Caesar's going to have really no match for the McLaren that time. Very nicely done. Anbu Mason nearly outside of a second of Bobber Yates. He's not going to be close enough to make that one happen. Although I tell you... Oh, Bobber Yates has gone around! Well, he saved it. Well, that was... I tell you what, that was a severe uptick in action that time. As Bobber Yates, the back end of that car clean, nearly went around from him, and somehow he was able to hold on and get that car locked up, and, well, instead of losing out on several points paying positions, he's only going to lose 1. And I think in fairness to Anbu Mason, that spot was going to be his either which way. Bobber was losing time to him, I don't want to say rather quickly, but with that dosage of DRS and then the next one after that, I think Anbu was going to have him into turn 4. Once we get Mack to cross the line, next time by will be 3 laps. Oh, Bobber, then again. See him again. That car is a handful to drive right now. It's the 2nd time We've seen the back end of the car come well away from Bobbert Yates. And all the while, this is starting to allow Gab into the picture here. And he's got his teammate of Noganator in the way for the DRS support. I think he's going to get it here. Yes, he will. Bobbert Yates trying to look forward on Anbu here. It's the heavy braking zones at the moment that it seems like he's having the difficulty. Into turn 1 they go. Well, he's held it that time. Although that one got close. Anbu really had no defense there. It was very nicely done for the Ferrari. Coming to the line this time will be 2 laps to go. As actually the tandem of the Haas's make their way through turn 16 and 17. Again, we'll have to keep an eye on the timing deltas here with all the penalties in play. And, of course, all results are unofficial until steward reports are posted later in the week. So what you see here may not be the final result. What we do know is this, Mac, well, he's done pretty much everything right today so far. And with 2 laps to go here, as Josh Senior picks up 3 seconds, puts him up to 6. You have to say it's been a very dominating race from the Haas here. It was looking tricky, being on the off-compound tires going into the first corner, with the car to the inside being on the softs, him being on the mediums. That was always going to be a difficult position to be in, but he managed to stay ahead, and he has never looked back. It's not going to be a grand slam for Mac here today, but it's sure going to feel like one. He has had this grid in a stranglehold. Rear naked choke. 0.8 of a second here. Bobbert Yates trying to find just that one more spot to Slayerize. In fact, I'm actually right surprised Bobbert's been able to hold on to P8 after nearly spinning out twice on lap 33. And now it looks as if Bobbert's even more ready to try to take one back over Slayerized. One more time, we'll go over the positives and negatives. Bobbert's going to be up 3 if he gets past Slayerized here. Driver of the day, it looks as if it's going to belong to that of either Plums or Freeman. Well, again, it's going to depend on penalties, that part's for sure. As now, final lap of the Grand Prix underway. As Mac making his way. As Gab has picked up 3 seconds. Sorry, that's at the back. That's P10, that. Bobbert Yates trying. He's now within 0.5 of a second and closing here on that of Slayerized down the pit straight for the final time. Bobbert Yates, for the time being, will take P7. That is a good result for Bobbert Yates. He needed it as well. Because right now, never mind that of Mitch Burns, that main championship rival is his teammate of Tennell. But one thing we do know for sure is this, as Matt comes through the stadium section for the final time here, the fireworks going off as the Alfa Romeo of Hightower, I think, has lost it coming out of the final corner here. Yes, he is doing donuts in the way of the leader, for God's sakes. Mac will win the Mexican Grand Prix here. Wonderful result from him. As Final Flame comes around the final corner, 6 seconds of penalty. He'll lose it to Tennell. Tennell, for the time being, has second. Plum's coming out of the final corner here. He'll take 4th. DB the Best getting Caesar at the line. My God, that one looked right close. Oh, that's not Caesar. That's the Haas of Brian Mosser. What the hell am I talking about? Well, you can't blame me. They were side by side. Well, anyways. That's Slayerized on low fuel. Almost looked as if. Mac taking the win, Tennell second. Great result for Tennell and Mac, both of them. So after it's all said and done here in Mexico, Mac taking the win here in commanding fashion over Tenel in second, Final Flame third, Plums fourth, fifth DB to best, sixth is Caesar, seventh Bobbert Yates, eighth Slayer Eyes, ninth Anbu Mason, 10th is Gab, 11th is Mitch Burns, 12th is Paulie, 13th Josh Sr., 14th Freeman, 15th Frenchie, 16th Brian Mosser, 17th Noganator. Rounding out the field, P18 is that of Hightower. Very impressive win here for Mac today. Good result for Tenel. Surely have made some ground in the championship standings, and next week we head to the Lusail Circuit in Qatar for the 7th round of Season 11 here in the Midwest F1 League Hotspot. It's been a pleasure joining you this time out. We'll see you next time.